All right, we have made it to Wednesday, and we've got a hell of a show for you today. Tim Brando is going to join us. Obviously, the college football rankings, we're going to react to those. But I think we may unite all of college football today. But speaking about uniting, there was a rumor out there. Anthony reported there may have been some talks between Ray Lewis and FAU. Ray Lewis possibly being the head coach at FAU, which, again, you can think what you want about that. But if this were to happen, and some people said it's not happened and they haven't reached out or they haven't talked, but is this like, did Deion Sanders set the path kind of for this a little bit? And maybe some of these former high-profile players that maybe thought they wouldn't get into coaching or didn't want to get into coaching or maybe even coaching at the college level, maybe that's the avenue. Do you think that may have something to do with like a Ray Lewis or some of these other guys coming in?
I don't know. I mean, we saw other guys at the same time. Didn't Eddie George take one of those?
HBCU, I think.
Eddie George took an HBCU job at the exact same time Deion Sanders did. We see these coaches get back into, or these former players get back into coaching all the time. I'm not sure why Deion Sanders, I mean, I understand he's one of the best corners of all time, but his trajectory has just exploded. I wonder if Ray Lewis's would be the same. I think you could make a case that Ray Lewis was as good as at his position as Deion was.
Well, it's almost kind of the towel boy effect, right?
Well, it is, but it's more like in the college game to me. I think maybe Ray Lewis saying, because a lot of guys just go straight. I mean, we saw Antonio Pierce go straight back to the NFL, first chance he got. I know it went down at Arizona State, but I think a lot of these guys that play in the league, and we kind of, we know Ray Lewis from Miami and Ed Reed from Miami and all these guys, but I think about, the Ravens, right? When I think about Ray Lewis, maybe not going straight to the NFL and saying, this college football thing, maybe this can work. Maybe in this NIL era, I can take advantage and say what you want, think what you want about Prime, but he has taken advantage.
I mean, there has to be something said if you're a high school recruit and Ray Lewis walks into your house to recruit you. I mean, that hits a little bit different, in my opinion.
Yeah, but, a lot of these guys just want to go straight into the league, and we see more of them that are high-profile guys really go straight into the NFL after they get done playing. But I love having high-profile guys come into college. You look at, what happened with Tom Herman and FAU. If it would be great for FAU, I'm all for it. True. I just think it's an interesting, maybe kind of a path that's being carved into the college game as opposed to just high-profile NFL guys going straight to the NFL. We'll see. Boise State continues to climb in the latest college football rankings. We're going to react. Tim Brando is going to join us to share his thoughts on everything, including this weekend's biggest matchups. And David Cone has something to say to SEC fans who just think they can walk all over his lawn. I'm Jake Crain, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Crain & Company. To all of the Power 4 loyalists and the Group of 5 protesters, we are all having the wrong argument and debate. Because if we had an actual tangible rubric to grade teams, we wouldn't have this infighting of Group of 5 and Power 4 because there would be metrics to explain why teams are where they are. There would be no need for an automatic Group of 5 bid if we actually used a recipe of legit numbers to find the best 12 teams. So you can scream on one hand that the Group of 5 gets no love and it's not fair, or on the other hand, you could say only Power 4 teams should get in. The Group of 5 should not be allowed. But this whole vacuum has been created because of a lack of substance in rankings, which has opened the door to this class warfare between the two sides. We can talk about the merit of the top 4 conference championship game winners getting an automatic bid, but in reality, there should be no automatic bids. Only the best 12 teams graded on a scale evenly across the board. The reality is some years there should only be Power 4 teams in the playoff. And other years, there should be one or possibly multiple Group of 5 teams in. Every year is not the same. We saw Cincinnati make a 4-team playoff. So pretending like the Group of 5 never gets in is burying your head in the sand. And to those who think a Group of 5 team should never get in, you're pretty much doing the same thing. The argument we should be having is what are the metrics that we need to use to rank the teams? But once again, since we can't point to anything tangible, we walk down this path of conspiracy theories and identity politics when it comes to the playoff rankings. By having actual metrics, coaches and teams would know what they have to do from a strength of schedule or style point standpoint. There could be critiquing, but at the end of the day, everybody is graded on the same scale. Let's put it in this term. How can I get a passing grade on a school project if I don't know what you're grading me on? The reason we don't have this is because that would take away the power and control from the ivory tower elitists of our sport. To put it plainly, we need a computer, not a committee. And the debate should take place over what value should go into that ranking to determine it, not this class warfare that we have going on. So once again, if you are screaming we always need a group of 5 rep regardless, I think you're wrong. If you are yelling we never need a group of 5 team regardless, I think you are also wrong. We need a system guided by numbers and values, not a smoke-filled room where transparency disappears and pockets get lined. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crain. And David, is it just as simple as let's have a debate over what we think are the most important values or metrics that should go into a ranking to have the 12 teams and just get away from this petty, let's storm the gates of Versailles and overthrow the government or, the Matilda syndrome of I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong. Wouldn't that make it so much easier?
Well, the problem is simply we have too many teams vying for one championship. We have 134 FBS teams vying for 12 spots, was 4, now it's 12 spots and 1 trophy. Contrast that with the NFL. There's 32 teams for 14 playoff spots. Almost half the league makes the playoff. Now, I'm not saying that that's the perfect balance because certainly I think that affects their regular season, and I find the college football regular season more entertaining than the NFL. But nonetheless, 32 teams, 14 spots. Now let's talk about high school football, comprised of regions and classifications. When I played high school football in Georgia, there was 5 classifications. We were 4. We were Region 2 and 4A, and we were fortunate enough to win the state championship that year. Would we have beaten Lowndes County in 5A? I don't know, and I don't care. Would Valdosta have beaten us or Dublin have beaten us? I don't know. I don't care. Would we have beaten the state champ in the state of Texas? I don't know, and I don't care. We accomplished what our goal was. So again, there's too many teams vying for too few spots. With that said, the objective metrics, and I'm going to talk about this more in my Get Off My Lawn, but the objective metrics that we've been asking for, at least we got some. Right? Now, there's 12 spots, so we only got 33% of that. But to me, you can't criticize the committee for being completely subjective and like a smoke-filled room where they get to pull all the strings, but then also hate automatic qualifiers. I think the best part of this playoff we're going to get is the automatic qualifiers, even more so than the home playoff games, because then at least we can say, win your conference and you're in. Should those teams get a bye? I think we can have a conversation about that. But to me, there is a metric of saying, hey, you can go win your conference. If you don't win your conference, then you're at the mercy of a playoff committee.
Well, let me ask you this. So you're advocating at the beginning for a group of 5 having their own playoff, basically having like a classification of Power 5 and Group of 5, which again I think half the coaches in Group of 5 want, half the other half
of them don't though.
But even
and a lot of fans don't either.
I can understand it. I think there's some Group of 5 teams that need to be Power 4 teams and some Power 4 teams that should probably be Group of 5.
That's what Blaine and I were talking about.
Well, but to me, even if you did that, even if you said, all right, we got a Power 4 playoff and we got a Group of 5 playoff, I would still want numbers to be able to find the best 12 teams to be able to lean on. As far as the automatic bids go, if we're just going to give every conference champion an automatic bid, then do what they do in college basketball and give every team that wins their conference tournament, aka the conference championship game or whatever outside of the regular season, an automatic bid in. I understand, say I can compromise. I can say, you know what? Let's have numbers, whether it's strength of schedule, whether it's scoring margin cap that we went to, whatever everybody agrees on, and that's the debate that we should be having. I can say, you know what? Let's have a ranking system that takes the top 4 conferences in a 12-team playoff, and whoever wins that, give them an automatic bid, but don't separate it into, a Power 4 or Group of 5 or whatever, or have it slanted in any way. Have some sort of metric to rank which conferences are the strongest. I'm fine with that. But again, when we're looking at all the contradictions that come out in this playoff ranking, it opens the door for this class warfare that we continue to see. Blaine put out a tweet last night basically saying, I don't think the Group of 5 should get an automatic bid. I would be fine with nobody getting an automatic bid. I would also be fine with the top 4 conference championship winners getting automatic bid because I can compromise. But I still think with the automatic bids, you can still sit here and say, all right, that's fine, but let's have numbers when we're picking the rest of the at-larges, even with this one. Even with only 7 at-larges, let's have some sort of metrics that we can say going into the season. Kirby Smart in Georgia, strength of schedule is going to matter. right? Style points is going to matter. Maybe even with the committee talking about how it's, how you're playing recently, let's weigh the last 6 games a little bit heavier than the first 6 games if you want to do that. But when you don't have anything to go back and point at, then it creates this vacuum of corruption, or at least the thought of it. And then when we see the rankings and we see contradictions, 1 through 5, 5 through 10, 10 through 15, all the way to Missouri and Illinois still being in there in the top 25, it's fruitless. It's a doom loop because we have nothing tangible that we can reach out and say, listen, you may not like that Miami is here, but these are the same numbers that everybody else is graded on, and the computer spit out that they should be number 8. We don't have that. We're all just guessing, and there's no transparency.
But we're not guessing on the conference champs, though. So
no, okay.
So we don't have nothing. We keep saying that we have nothing. We have something. Like, we know the winners of the championships are going to get into the play.
Then make every conference
That's solid. That's great. I mean, in the NFL, we don't have to have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
In the NFL, there's no committee. In high school football, like I was saying, there's no committee. So either we remove the subjectivity completely, okay, or we're going to continue to have these conversations because people in one year are going to value strength of schedule. Then in another year, they're going to say, well, your quarterback got hurt.
Well, why can't we have both, though? Why couldn't we have 4 automatic bids? You have 8 at-larges. Why not have those 8 at-larges that get in be graded on a scale like they do in college basketball?
That's subjective, though. It's going to be subjective.
What? Not if you have strength of record and everybody.
No, it's not. Who gets to decide strength of record? That's my question.
It doesn't.
Like Georgia and Texas this year, for instance. Georgia and Texas. If Georgia has so much of a tougher schedule than Texas has, go talk to the SEC. Go complain to Greg Sankey about it. It's not the college football playoff committee's fault that Georgia has a tougher schedule than Texas does.
And nobody there will never be all even schedules. That's not what I'm saying. Because you don't know what teams are going to do what. You didn't know Michigan was going to do this or USC was going to be this way. We don't know that, and it changes throughout the year. But there is a way. How does basketball do it then? How do we ever figure that out? How did we do it in the BCS?
Well, there's a lot of complaining with basketball.
Well, there's always going to be complaining.
Well,
you'll never end complaining, but at least when I'm complaining, I can say, listen, here's what the numbers say. Because strength of schedule, you can sit here and say, these are all the teams that you played. These are the 12 teams you played. These are how good the teams that you played are at the end of the year, and that can spit out a ranking. If you're in the Mountain West, that's one thing. If you're in the SEC, that's the other. There may be years where the Big Ten is a better conference than the SEC. There may be years where the SEC is better than the Big Ten, the ACC is better than the Big 12. But at least we would have something to look back on. I'm not understanding where you're saying, like, it would be different for the SEC and the Big Ten. Yes, it will, but if you grade everybody on the same scale and say, we think strength of schedule matters, and we can grade everybody's strength of schedule together, and then the margin by which you win, you can figure that out, and at least you know going into it, Blaine, I'll kick it over to you, that you're able to find some sort of number to look back on. You can create. They complain there's 68 teams that go in the NCAA tournament. There's always 3 or 4 teams that don't get in. They're going to complain and be upset, and that's not going to change. That'll never change. But at least there are numbers I can look at and they can point at and say it wasn't us just all sitting here talking about, well, this matters this week and that matters this week and this doesn't matter and that matters. There's something tangible.
So you don't want a committee. You want a computer.
I want a computer that has metrics that we value the most. Whether it's 2, whether it's 4, whether it's 6.
What would be those?
I think strength of schedule would be one. I think style points would be another. I'm even fine with, like I said, saying, hey, if you want to say that we want the teams that are playing the best at the end of the year to get in, let's weigh the last 6 games maybe more than we weigh the first 6. But even if it's 2, there's at least it's a number. It's better than pissing in the wind. I mean, what do we got now?
So
nobody can explain what's going on.
If you're in a football game in week 2, you're like, well, we lost it, but it doesn't matter as much.
Ward Manuel just said that yesterday.
That's terrible.
He literally just basically said that yesterday.
Don't get me started on Ward Manuel.
Yeah, I know. That's a fastball down the pipe.
You guys trust what the committee's actually coming out and saying to what they'll actually do in the end?
About as much as I trust CNN and MSNBC and all these mainstream medias, because what did they do last year? They strung Florida State along. And I'm sure when we get Tim Brando on here, he's going to talk about it being a TV show, and good, bad, or indifferent, he's right. They strung Florida State all the way along until the end and then pulled the rug out on them.
But
I don't trust a word.
As much as I hate what they did to Florida State, they played the bad guy role to benefit the sport. And we got a better college football game with Alabama going to the Rose Bowl. We got a better playoff, and the ratings were better than if Florida State had gone and gotten it. And I hate it. But they're putting together a television show.
They are.
You can either embrace that, or we can just strictly go off objective metrics for entry. Right? We can just say, like, hey, did you win the NFC South? Did you win the NFC South? Then you get to make the playoff.
Yeah.
Are you the fourth best team in a tougher division than someone else? Go cry to someone else. I don't care.
I agree with you 100% that.
How many times have I watched the Braves win their division and they can't can't do anything
don't
in the
hurt
playoffs,
me more.
You know? Go cry about it to someone else.
Don't hurt me more. I wasn't as upset with what they did to Florida State. I was upset when they did it. Jordan Travis didn't get hurt in the ACC championship game. He got hurt before they even played another SEC team. So if you're going to do it then, and then I'm fine with it. But don't string us along for 3 weeks, and then after they win all the rest of their games, where you've had them ranked in the same spot, then pull the rug out on them. So I'm with you, and we talked about this last year. As awful as that was for Florida State, and we're going to get into another situation about quarterbacks playing and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, whether it's having the automatic conference championship bids, which I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. At least that's something objective that is meritocracy, that you can go and win it and you're in. I'm good with that. My thing is with the at-large bids. If we're going to have automatic bids and at-large bids, let's at least have some way to grade the at-large bids on a scale even.
Let me say one more point to you because you put out the tweet yesterday that got so much action, which congratulations on that. How wrong can the committee possibly get it? Isn't every single possible matchup we're going to be awesome? And every single year, whoever's ranked 13th is going to complain and say that they were one of the best 10 teams. Every ranking that I've seen put out so far, whether we complain about the order of it or whether we complain that the wrong teams are in the top 12, I've looked at every single matchup and thought, man, Indiana could host Alabama, or Notre Dame could host
and those spreads
Ole Miss.
That came out,
like that's going to be how wrong can they possibly get it?
Yeah, my thing is this: well, the spreads just came out for that. Someone's always going to be pissed off. All right, that's just the way that things work. What I was saying in that tweet yesterday, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, is that a Group of 5 team should not automatically get a bid into the playoff, because I think right now Boise State, from a resume standpoint, what they did at Oregon, only losing at 3, you don't need that G5 automatic bid. You're going to get in the playoffs if you win out.
Why? Because that's a quality loss, and you could go. But that is my point. Is saying that if your numbers are good enough, and again, I'm not disagreeing with David. I like if you have a way to rank the conferences, which if we can rank the at-larges, we can rank the conferences, the top 4 conferences get an automatic bid. I am 100% totally behind that. I can compromise there because I really deep down kind of like it, and I think it makes it interesting. But to the Boise State Group of 5 point, screw Power 4 or Group of 5 when it comes to at-large bids. Screw it. Who cares? If your numbers are good enough, whether your name is Boise or whether your name's Baylor, whether your name's Alabama or your Alabama State, if you qualify with those numbers that everybody is graded on, you are in. Like if Army goes undefeated and beats Notre Dame, they should be in.
100%.
The numbers would let them be in if Boise State would be in as well. So my argument is that we have to stop this. Oh, it's Group of 5. Oh, it's Power 4. Let's rank everybody on the same scale. And if you need to go undefeated because your strength of schedule is bad, well, then damn it, you need to go undefeated. In college basketball, we see teams from the MEAC all the time that go 28-3 and have great records, but they have to win their conference tournament because their strength of schedule is so bad. And I also think it will incentivize the SEC to maybe play that 9th game, which is what they should be doing. I think we can all agree on that, to help your strength of schedule. But then also some of these, the Boise States and the Memphis, to keep scheduling these big games against the Oregons and some of these teams. So I think there's a happy medium there. I just want something to point to and say, this adds up to me.
I'll just make 2 points on that quickly. As someone from Statesboro, and I've said this before, I would love it if Georgia Southern was still vying for their own playoff right this second, rather than halfway through the season. They have no shot to be the Group of 5 team. How much fun would that be on top of the 12-team playoff we're talking about, man, the Georgia Southern Appalachian State game, that's going to come down to the wire and decide who can get into the Group of 5 playoff. I want that. A lot of fans have reached out to me saying they don't want that and they can't believe I would advocate for that. Whatever. If you want to see our conversation with Josh Pate on that, please go check it out on YouTube. I think it's pretty great. But the second point, and I was saying this to you earlier, while I could get on board with the Group of 5 not having an automatic bid into the playoff, I will say one thing. Because are there 6? So the Group of 5 team, how many teams? 60 teams comprised in the Group of 5? Whatever it is.
It's a shifting.
Whatever it is, there's so many of them. And a lot of them play good football consistently. If you look at someone like Appalachian State, yeah, they're down this year. A couple of those teams are down. Memphis. But, Memphis had their shot right, but kind of blew it. But there's enough of them that I think one will rise up every season. One Group of 5 team will rise up that will at least be on par with numbers 12, 13, and 14. Yes. Maybe not when it was a 14 playoff. We know what happened with Cincinnati, and there was sort of no other great 4th team option, so they threw them a bone. I think one Group of 5 team will rise up every year and at least be worthy to compete with whoever's at 12
That's
or 13.
what I get worried about, is that one year with that Group of 5, the Group of 5 teams aren't great. All right, you have that automatic bid if you're a Group of 5 and they walk in with 2 or 3 losses, they get in the playoffs and get murdered, and someone's sitting on the outside at 13 who deserve to be in there. I think that
they deserve it, though?
I think a Group of 5 team, if they are good enough, will get noticed and get put in the playoffs. I just don't think you need that automatic bid. If you play well enough, you talk about Cincinnati and the 4 team. If you play well enough against ranked
and you
teams,
schedule well enough,
they will you will be seen and you will be put in the playoff. I just don't think you need to automatically be like, well, they're there, so we have to put them in.
Yeah, I want to get to the chat, but to your point, David, and we've talked about this many times, I think there are some Group of 5 teams that have more value than some Power 4 teams. Yes. I think Memphis has way more value than Wake Forest.
Sure. And even in years where they don't, I mean, Northern Illinois doesn't have a lot of value right now. They're ranked, 7th in the MAC? They beat Notre Dame
on the road.
And that's what's great about college football. But without a true relegation system where someone can move up as a program or move back, which we're just not going to get. That would just take too much infrastructure change unless you consider conference realignment to be a version of relegation. Conference realignment where these conferences sort of bring some of these teams up. But in order to do that, you'd have to then kick some out too.
Exactly right.
I don't see that happening so much.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting debate. All right, let's get to the chat here. The phone lines are going to open 2:45 p.m. Central. It's 1-855-236-3228. We want to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button. The poll today is, Blaine, tell them real quick.
The poll is, should there be automatic bids in the playoff?
All right, go ahead. What's going on?
All right, we're going to start off with John. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read. All donations will get read at the end of the show. We're going to start off with John Breeshares. What's up, man? Says, if Army wins out 12-0 AAC championship with wins over Notre Dame and Tulane, what does the committee do to a 10-3 Power 4 champion versus a 12-1 Boise State and a 12-0 Army at the time of selection Sunday?
Well, I mean, if you look at the way it's done, we got the automatic bids. I mean, if you're a Power 4 conference champion, you're going to be in the college football playoff. My biggest question is if you're a team that's 10-2, right? I'm going to tell you right now, if Army goes undefeated, and again, they'll only be 12-0, right? Or they'll only be, that's right, they'll be 12-0 because their conference championship game, would be, or they would play Navy.
They're playing
after when the selection happens.
But again, that may be an exhibition. I think Tulane, they're already slated to play. Hold on, let me pull it up.
It may already be done, but if Army, let me put it this way. If Army goes undefeated and beats Notre Dame, Army should be in the playoff and Notre Dame should not. I think we can all agree on that here. That's where that loss to Northern Illinois really hurts you. What I'm interested to see is what happens with the conference rankings when it comes to Boise State in the Big 12 or the ACC. Is there a way that Boise State could find themselves in that 4th slot to get a bye? And then on that same token, just like I said in the open, there may be some years where multiple Group of 5 teams deserve to be in. I think if Boise State goes undefeated and wins their conference championship and Army does the same thing, you have a case that both of them should be in.
Yeah, you're right. So Army's only going to play 11 games by the time the conference championship happens, which is looking like Tulane versus Army. Again, Notre Dame wouldn't be a conference game. And then, yes, that Navy game would be after Selection Sunday, and that would be their 12th regular season game.
Yeah.
Let's go to Double T BMC. He says, removing auto bids, in my opinion, is stupid. I feel like it'll make the conference championship games absolutely worthless.
Well, and again, I'm down with that. I'm fine with having the conference champion of the top 4 conferences be in there. I've got absolutely no problem with that. that is merit-based. The best 4 conferences, hell yeah, the champion should be in. I think you can make a decent case that the runner-up in there in most cases should also be in. My thing is with the automatic bids outside of the top 4 conferences. That's my problem in grading them on a scale. I'm good with the automatic bids. You don't have to eliminate them all, but I would be willing to risk doing that if we did have a way, which we know we could, to be able to find the best 12 teams possible.
All right, let's go to Joshua Beck. Joshua, what is up? He says, ranking after the conference title games, top 4 gets buys, and then we straight seeded 1 through 12.
That's basically what I said at the Open, but you're talking about adding more teams. I think that would be a 16, or is he adding the automatic bids into that?
I believe he's adding the automatic bids into that. Let's go to Taylor Holland. What's up, Taylor? So how does it work if a G5 team is good enough to be ranked number 15 in the college football playoff, but they're not a top 12 team, so now they get a second chance to win the G5 playoff tournament?
Ooh, what do you think about that, David?
Well, yeah, we've talked about that before. We've talked about that. Can you have both? Could you have a group of 5 playoff, but the best team that gets sort of brought up into the 12-team playoff, like they're playing for that? Again, I don't know how the money works, right? Like that's why a lot of these coaches we've talked to have said, hey, if we're that team that gets to make the 12-team playoff, it'd be such a more financially rewarding situation from us. But I think a group of 5 playoff would do really well.
Well, see, I mean, I think that's a good compromise. Well, what if if one group of 5 team does make it in, or let's say no group of 5 teams make it in, then you have that playoff to fall back on, and that can be because I mean we got the NIT in college basketball, we got the NCAA tournament, we got the NIT, the CBI.
If you took away the automatic bid, and they don't make the 12-team playoff, then they're one of the many teams in the playoff. That's interesting.
That is interesting. But what else is interesting is being at a live sporting event. All right, we know how fun that is. And if you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, you need to check out our friends over at the Game Time app. You need to download it. You create an account. You use code BOOSTER. You get $20 off your first purchase. When you use BOOSTER, that code, get that $20 off. And it's not just sports. It's concerts. It's theater, all that stuff. I love on social media when people tag us at a place. You can see the view from your seat. Right? Before you even sit down there, they tag us, they tag Game Time in it. It's a lot of fun to see. But one of the best things I have is we always talk about working smarter, not harder. Or as David says, let's just work smarter and harder. Game Time Picks helps you filter out the fluff, gives you incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You look again here in Nashville, we got the Preds, we got the Titans. It's the home of country music. We got Vanderbilt, which is a much hotter ticket right now than it's ever been, especially this weekend against LSU. Check out Game Time and you can get tickets up to an hour before the event. So download the Game Time app. It's in the App Store. Create an account. Use code BOOSTER. Get that $20 off. I'm telling you, you'll use it once and you won't use anything else to buy tickets again. What time is it, fellas?
It's game time.
It's game time, guys. It's game time, guys. All right, let's show the rankings so we can all get pissed off together.
Let's do it.
The college football playoff rankings that came out last night. If you're on audio, I'm going to read 1 through 25 quickly, starting with 1. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, Georgia. That's the top 10. Tennessee, Boise, SMU, BYU, A&M, Colorado, Clemson, South Carolina, Army, Tulane. That's the top 20. And then to finish it out, Arizona State, Iowa State, Missouri, UNLV, and Illinois. Guys, and I'm almost to the point now where I'm almost tired of complaining about the contradictions. So there's just a couple things here. And, we put out our top 12. You can see that, just scroll down on YouTube. You can see it on social media as well if you want. We got no problem with Oregon and Ohio State right at 1 and 2. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. You look at Texas at 3, Penn State at 4. At least that's consistent in both teams have a very quality loss and no big win. I guess that's consistent there. Indiana at 5. We had Indiana at 3 because they're undefeated and they're going to get their shot. But here's where my problem is. How does Alabama, and I know BYU lost, how does Alabama move up that far after only beating Mercer? And Miami was on a bye week, but Georgia doesn't move up as many spots after beating Tennessee with the same amount of losses. And Alabama should be in front of Georgia because Alabama won the head-to-head. But explain me the methodology there. Also, somebody look me in the eyes and explain to me how in the world Miami is in front of SMU and SMU is in front of BYU. Can somebody just hold my hand like a 3-year-old at Winn-Dixie and explain that one to me? I mean, I don't think there's a great answer.
So if Georgia beats UMass by 40, do they move up 3 spots?
I liked our way of handling Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I believe that was the order because that's the way the SEC tiebreak would go right this second. Again, the percentage will change after next week depending on who wins and who loses and all that. But there's no other way to square, what do we call it, the Mexican standoff between those teams who've all beaten each other.
Well, if Indiana loses this game, we kind of talked about this earlier, David. Say they lose by 20 points against Ohio State. Where did you drop Indiana in its ranking?
I would drop them somewhere between... It depends on what happens around the rest of the country, obviously, but somewhere between 11 and 14, maybe. I mean, they would be playing the number 2 team in the country, so that's going to mean something, but also it's going to be the toughest team they played, and you lost by 20.
Well, here's where, in my opinion, the committee has a problem if that happens. Because Texas is going to beat Kentucky. So what happens if Indiana goes on the road and loses by 20, which is only 5 more points than Texas lost to Georgia at home? And by the way, Ohio State is ranked higher than where Georgia was when that Texas game went down. How could you make any case of dropping Indiana at all? At all, if they lose that game by 20, but simultaneously sit here and say Texas should stay number 3, even though they got doubled up at home against a team ranked behind where Ohio State is?
I think a lot of it must be because they know they're going to have the Texas to Texas A&M head-to-head to go off of.
Yeah,
it's not like
we're going to get that
and
game.
the thing about it, it's not like Indiana's scraping by week in, week out. Indiana's killing people. Absolutely killing people for 4 quarters. So, like, it gets to the point now where, like, is it just because Texas is Texas and Indiana's the new kid at the party?
Well, let me ask you this. Cone. What happens if Indiana loses by 6, which is 1 less point, I believe, than Penn State lost to Ohio State at home?
And they were at home.
And shouldn't Indiana go in front of Penn State? Isn't that how this works?
Yeah, that was another scenario we had talked about earlier.
What's your thoughts on Missouri at 23?
Well, I've heard, and I went on, with Bob Basker with them on Knoxville, radio earlier, and, they're talking about and here comes the conspiracy theories, and this is what happened, that they're keeping Missouri at 23 to make Alabama look better, or to make the SEC look better. See, That's where we talk about strength of schedule. Well, who gets to decide? I mean, that's corrupted as well. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But if there was some sort of semblance of a number you could go back on and say, hey, listen, this is where the strength of schedule of this conference is. This was baked into the formula, and this is why we kept them there. I'd be fine with it. But you can't. Again, though, looking in the middle there, how in the world? So BYU, that loss against Kansas doesn't look great, but they also did beat SMU. And it's not like SMU has this magical, unbelievable win against a great team. They have better wins, I think, overall than Miami, and they've got a lot better loss than Miami. So they've won a bunch of games in a row. Miami lost more recently than SMU lost. And it's not like the ACC and the Big 12 are an oceans-wide gap difference in how good the conference is. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm still not panicking so much because I think most of the right teams are in there, and some of the fringe teams, obviously, we're still seeing how that plays out. And then we still have 2 weeks left, guys. So much can happen in 2 weeks. Yeah. And there's some top matchups that we're going to get head-to-head to go off of. So do I love the order? No, I like our order better, but I'm still not panicking because I think most of the right teams are in there. I just at least in the 12. I'm kind of capping it at 12. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I just hate that we have to sit here and hope that it just all works out perfectly. Maybe that's where I'm at, because this year has just been so much parity across the board. Somebody's going to get upset this weekend that you didn't think was going to get upset or whatever. I hate that we just bounce around like this.
If Texas loses, where do you drop them?
I think they
are gone. Are they
to Kentucky?
Not Kentucky.
To A&M?
To A&M.
I don't think you can put them in the playoff.
Are you dropping them out of the playoff?
Well, I want to see what happens. We have a whole week of football to get to before we even get to that one. And then how does the loss look? I mean, is it by 1 point at the last second and the officiating was terrible? I mean, like that, again, the subjectivity of eye test and all that, like that kind of stuff matters, which, I wish it didn't. But yeah. All right, let's go to the chat.
All right, let's go to get these donations real quick. Let's go to a $5 donation from Michael D. What's up, man? He says, hey, guys, I don't know if you heard, but the Ohio State center is out. Yeah. Indiana's playing with house money. Ooh, baby. Also, Signetti tied up for 8 more, while Day could be a goner if Ohio State loses. What the hell? And why is Penn State still ranked this high, by the way?
Well, I'm of the cloth that if I think you are right about something, I will tell you I think you're right. If I think you're wrong about something, or if I would think I'm right about something, or if I was wrong about something, I will say that. They are keeping the same energy between Penn State and Texas, having them 3-4. Because there's a lot of similarities there. Mm-hmm. Neither one of them have a fantastic win, and they have a quality loss. Now, to me, why would Penn State not be in front of Texas is the question. When Penn State lost to the number 2 team overall, and Texas lost to a Georgia team that y'all didn't move up after beating Tennessee as much as you moved up Alabama after they just beat Mercer to death. Mm-hmm. So at least, though, I can live in that realm because there's some consistency there between Texas and Penn State. I may not love it, but there's some consistency.
All right, let's go to Todd Gwynn. What's up, Todd? He says Texas got a gift with that schedule from the SEC. How did Texas get off so easy with this schedule?
Well,
Greg.
I do want to say this, too. I don't care if you're an Indiana fan or not. That injury to Seth McLaughlin is devastating, and I hate it for him. If you're an Indiana guy, I know Kurt Cignetti wants to play him at full speed. I know he's that type of guy, so I want to make sure we get to that on that question earlier by Michael. But when it comes to Texas and the schedule, listen, it is impossible, even without divisions, to have everybody have an equally strong schedule because you don't know which teams are going to be good and which teams are going to be bad. You can guess. We can rank the schedules before the season based on what we think, but doing that is just like having preseason rankings. We didn't know Michigan was going to be like this. We didn't know Vanderbilt was going to be like this. So there's some years where it's an absolute impossibility, right, to have a strong schedule for each team, like that's equally strength. It's an impossibility. So I don't blame Texas for that because I think Texas tried to schedule the non-conference pretty highly. But on that same token, I'm not going to reward you because you tried to do something and it didn't work out great. I've got to call it like I see it. The schedule's been weak, but you're going to get a shot against A&M. And I think there were some people that didn't think A&M was going to be that good this year. So, we'll see.
Let's go to Frank Midtoe. What's up, Frank? He says, guys, just remember the rankings really don't matter until the last week of college football.
True,
but, we do a sports show that talks a lot about college football. So, we got to break it down. And, again, after what happened last year where they pulled the rug out at the end, there's not been an ever more true statement than what he just made.
Let's go to Andrew Moreham. What's up, Andrew? He says, guys, do you think Oregon can beat any team in the SEC if they played their A game?
Yes.
Let's go to a $10 donation from Pate. Appreciate it, Pate. If you want to say just go win your conference, you're in. We need divisions and the ability to play everyone for the most part. Otherwise, it's just subjective. I believe a relegation system would help a little bit.
Okay, is he talking about divisions between Power 4 and Group 5?
Within the conferences, because we're not getting a true champion when you expand the conference and eliminate divisions in the same year.
See, I disagree with that because by having divisions, you eliminate the amount of teams that the other teams in the other division can play. We saw this play out in the Big Ten. That's a great example. We had Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State in the same division. We never got the 2 best teams in the conference championship in most years, and I think everybody can agree with that. The beautiful thing about taking away divisions is that over a 4-year schedule, you can play every team home and away. There's no better way to do it. There's just no better way to do it.
Where I have tiebreakers.
You have tiebreakers. Where I disagree with the SEC is that they don't play. I don't know how you get rid of divisions and don't add that extra conference game. That was my problem, and I think they should go to 9. But when I look at this, and strength of schedule doesn't matter. If I'm Greg Sankey, we may go to 5 conference games. I may have 3 divisions if you're not going to reward strength of schedule.
Quickly, I want to go to this. He said, the Pack says, isn't it funny that Texas left the Big 12 because the schedule is too easy to go to the SEC where apparently our schedule is too easy?
Well, I think we're operating in 2 different realms. If we're going to argue any type of comparison between the Big 12 and SEC, I think that's fraudulent this year. Maybe not every year, but this year. But I'll tell you who's not fraudulent. Our next guest, Tim Brando. You can catch him on Fox. Really just turn on the TV or go to the bathroom mirror and say his name 3 times and spin around, and he'll show up and tell you what he really thinks. Timmy B, what's up, dude?
I'm great. I hope you guys were able to get through the night, even though I know you probably watched what I told you not to watch. But you did get a good night's sleep. You're okay. All right.
Oh, so I did.
I was in a war.
From there.
I'm trying to get as many good nights sleep before this baby comes. But Timmy B, I want to start off by I want to play this clip. And you have talked about, and you've said this ever since we've had you on, that this is a TV show, this is Desperate Housewives, this is The Bachelor, this is Naked and Afraid, which is what I was after watching the rankings last night. But this is Joey Galloway on the show with maybe, and Mel Kiper had an awful take this offseason. It was really bad, all right, about the 2 eye safeties. But this may be the worst and softest take. And I don't think Joey Galloway is soft. He was a hell of a player. But I just want to play this, and I would just love for you to react after you hear it. Let's go ahead and play this clip.
They can't go any higher.
They are behind a one-loss
They have
team.
a chance to go on the road and prove what they are. Now, honestly, if we believe in what our metrics are saying, if I'm Indiana, I don't know if I'm playing Rourke against Ohio State. We've seen what happened to Florida State last year, Jordan Travis. What could keep Indiana out of this? Getting their quarterback hurt. We've seen it happen to Florida State last year, having not played anybody.
Or losing by 30.
If you look at 3, 4, and 5, Texas, Penn State, and Indiana, they literally have played nobody between all three teams. The toughest team in that is Vandy. So a lot of this that we're looking at is eye test.
Tim Brando, should Indiana bench their starting quarterback in the biggest game in the program's history, I think?
No, they shouldn't. But what's really an abomination is the fact that kind of time, okay, for such nonsensical conversation is part of whatever the college football playoff is paying ESPN for that airtime. You know, the best usage of the time for the CFP and the sponsors of that show, I gather it's Allstate and, you know, the playoff predictor and all that other crap. If you're going to put a show on the air because it's sponsored, give us some substance. Give us some real substance. And it neither comes from whoever the spokesperson is for the CFP or anybody else for that matter. It's just a hyperbolic.
Say it.
No other word for it. It's hyperbolic shit. That's what it is. It's hyperbolic shit, period. And it's unfortunate that it is that, but it is. And it's just a byproduct of when you don't want to be transparent and you leave it up to, you know, the guys to have to just pontificate and throw out, you know, opinions. Sooner or later, someone's going to come out with something like that. Joey's point, I think, is twofold. One, the Travis thing from a year ago is legitimate. It's in his head. All right. But the other factor here is how do I get hits? How do I get, that's all it is. It's like taking what's on streaming TV. And I think that's the first time I've ever used a curse word on your show, but it's deserving of that. It is, because that's exactly what it is. There's no substance to it. It's just filling the air so that your show and other shows like it can say, "Oh, what about that?" It's like a shock jock gone, you know, in the wrong direction. It's like Howard Stern was once really, really good, and now he's really, really not. That's what the show becomes when you don't have substantive information coming from the college football playoff, and there is nothing substantive that comes from them until the very end. Well, so David, I apologize to those that I might have offended.
Oh, you're good.
Using that, even though the FCC can't legislate against the Daily Wire, I just feel like there's no other word to describe it than that. It's excrement. It's absolutely excrement that is being filled. And it's not. And again, I will defend my thoughts about the college football playoff being corrupt because they don't come forward with any tangible information from week to week. And even at the end, it's like an official with a bad call. Who's representing the officials after the game? Answer: nobody. CFP doesn't answer for itself any more than officials do in the aftermath of any big game that's played. And the guys doing that show are guys. Booger McFarland's a dear friend of mine. I've mentored him as he was.
I like Booger a lot.
I love Booger, and I think the world of Reese Davis. I do. They're in a horrible spot. Having to do that and try to make it entertaining, interesting, and provocative. And that was just a failed attempt at all three of the above mentioned.
Well, Cone, I mean, if when I watch Barstool, I know what I'm going to get. It wouldn't surprise me on something like Barstool. And I know you got a great get off my lawn. We're going to get to. I don't want to get too deep in it, but it. I don't know. It's just sad to me.
Yeah, I wish you could have heard the get off my lawn. I'll send it to you after, Tim. I do find it amusing that it's a former Buckeye wide receiver who's advocating that Indiana not start their starting quarterback.
I left that for you, Dave.
I will say that I'm getting frustrated, Tim, with the sport at the lack of leadership, especially in opportunities where I think even this group right here could move forward and put together better solutions. Not that you can make everyone happy, and I do think they have been put in some very tough situations. For instance, this year, we begged after last year for some objective metrics, and now we at least have some automatic qualifiers, which make up 33% of the entries. So I think that is a step in the positive direction. But, what frustrates me is before we ever even got one of the 4-team playoffs, when it was announced, but before it was played, before Larry Culpepper even graced us with his presence on the Dr. Pepper commercials, everyone said, well, it really should be 8, and here's how it should work out. And now we're doing the same thing again. This 12-team playoff is going to be wildly entertaining because I don't think the committee can mess it up so bad that the matchups are going to be pitiful. Every single one they put out, I can't wait for the matchups. So why is it before we even get one 12-team playoff, before we can even execute one season of it, everyone is up in arms and wants to throw it in the trash can?
Well, because that's the nature, that's the byproduct of the way college football has always been. Roy Kramer, who was probably the greatest visionary of my lifetime, who came up with the idea to have a playoff and break the SEC into 2 divisions back in 1992 with the additions of South Carolina and Arkansas. That was unheard of at the time. And he had everybody fuming, especially Alabama, because they had gone undefeated. And if that pass interception hadn't have been thrown by Shane Matthews and taken back for a touchdown, then maybe the wrong team would have represented the SEC. But Alabama did win the game, and history will point to that in '92 as a seminal moment in the growth of college football. And from that, of course, came the BCS, but not without angst, anger, and bitterness. Oh my, that's what I mentioned last night. If you saw my post, it's about anger, it's about angst, it's about bitterness this time of year. And this particular show we're talking about has only made it worse, because it's like watching the death of someone over and over and over again. Just give us the bad news once. Let's see it at the end. We all kind of know what's coming. We all know the end result of this. Yeah. We know the teams that are going to get screwed, and we know the teams that are going to get in. So let's just do it at the very end. Why they have this? Well, I know why. The reason is advertising dollars, and college football playoff is saying here's another vehicle to make some money off of, and ESPN's contracted to run the show, so they do. And I would just want, as a broadcaster that worked for them, to be told, no, we don't need your services here. I wouldn't want any part of that show. And they've got the right foot soldiers, I'm sure, doing it, because Reese is a company guy and he's going to do whatever's asked of him. And he's a great guy and a great broadcaster. But the bottom line is this is just wrong. And it has been wrong for a while. And my thoughts are, let's enjoy our November to remember. All right. These are better games. And let's try to get save our anger for the end when it really counts. If somebody mentions, and it happens to me all the time when I put out my top 15, how the hell's Indiana number 3, Tim? How can you put them number 3? I can put them number 3 because I've seen them play. I like what they're about. And I think that the same reason I can put Texas where I put Texas, their schedule has been weak too. Give me their biggest victory. Give me Penn State's biggest victory. You want to tell me Indiana's biggest win was against a 5-5 Nebraska team? All right, fine. But you know what? That Nebraska team played at Ohio State the following week and had a chance to beat them at the end. So you want to start playing that game, then I'll go all day long with you. All right? I think Indiana is going to stay right with Ohio State in the game this week. I don't think the game is going to be too big for them at all. I really don't. I may be wrong, but I'm saying what I truly believe and what I truly see. Yeah. I don't think anybody on that committee is saying anything or telling anyone what they truly see. I think they're already in the process of gerrymandering this thing a certain way so the right teams get in. That's my belief. Yeah. I truly believe that. And they're building in some, well, if we take this team, we got to take that team, just like they did last year with Georgia, Bama, Florida State, and Texas. Texas had to go if Alabama won. Florida State was going to go if Georgia won. Simple as that. But no one on that committee was going to say anything publicly about it, and they never did. Yeah. But that's exactly what happened. And the same thing's going to happen here, only I think it'll probably happen instead of once in a most egregious factor with an undefeated Power 5 conference team being left out. This time it's going to happen 2 or 3 times. Okay? It's going to happen 2 or 3 times. And they're just going to spread the bitterness, the anger, and the hatred from a lot. And it's unfortunate because it doesn't have to be that way. To your point, automatic qualifier is fine, but making them conference champions, okay, we got to do that. People are bitching about that now. Oh, that's got to be changed. Have you seen this already? This is part of the hyperbole. Well, they really need to change this because the conference champions don't always get, like, for instance, we've got this team ranked where they are, and people see that, they're confused. Now we're putting them in a seeding here, not a ranking. Huh? That's all part of the hyperbole. And this is brought on by a college football playoff that is fundamentally flawed, with the idea that we are going to get the biggest brands in this thing, and we can exercise all the brand bias we want, and no one's going to stop us. Just like the SEC can play FCS teams this weekend. Some played them last weekend. Anybody going to stop them? Is it going to hurt their metrics? Hell no. It never has.
Bama moved up 3 spots after beating Mercer. But then on the other hand, Georgia didn't move up as much.
By the way.
Yeah, which, by the way, shout out to SoCon. Yeah. But then Georgia doesn't move up as far, and they still should be behind Alabama after they beat Tennessee at home. My thing is, if you're going to put Bama in front of Miami when Miami's on an off week because they beat Mercer, you pretty much damn well need to put Georgia ahead of Miami, too, after they beat Tennessee with the same amount of losses that Alabama has. But let's get to the chat, Blaine, for Timmy B.
Let's go to Sub05. Says, Timmy, what team is the committee most wrong about?
Team that the committee is most
good
wrong
or bad,
about.
I guess.
That is a good question, actually, because it's cumulative. This year, we have so many. That's what's great about it. Let me start by saying this. Because we do have 12, we've got about, what would you say, 16 to 20 teams that feel like they've got a legitimate shot.
Yeah.
And we've still got this weekend and next weekend. And so let me survey my list. Team that I've got a lot higher than they would have.
Mine's Miami.
Okay, you got the glasses on. We're in trouble.
I guess mine is. What
about Penn State?
No, I think Penn State kind of deserves to be where they are, even though we don't know. I mean, they're a little bit like Texas North. I mean, they haven't beaten anybody of substance,
and they don't have an A&M here at the end.
They don't.
No, but they're good. They're good enough to be there. I think that right now SMU winning the ACC is a team that I think is being terribly overlooked. Miami, I think we all thought about because I had them winning the ACC, and they still may. Probably the Big 12 champion is going to be the team that is most overlooked, because whether it is BYU or Colorado, and by the way, let's talk about Colorado a little bit. All right. As great as Coach Prime's team has played of late, and the comeback that they made after really a kind of a PR hole he had dug for himself in the summer, you gotta admit, since that Baylor miracle, they've been pretty damn good.
Yeah, they have.
And Warren Sapp has made a difference. But if you just look at the metrics, their biggest win is Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech is their biggest win. Can they lose to Kansas? Absolutely, they can lose. And when they do lose that game, and I believe they will, then the Big 12 will be trashed. The Big 12 will be trashed because Kansas, of all people, did this. Look at their history. Well, I think we all knew Kansas was supposed to be better. Kansas was one of the candidates to win the Big 12 at the beginning of the year. But Jalen Daniels could not find his own receivers. He was throwing picks.
Yeah.
Picks after picks after picks. They're now playing the way we thought they would. And Devin Neal's a hell of a back, and Lance Leipold's a great coach. The Big 12 team is more than likely going to be the team that everyone says came from a mediocre conference. It's not very good, and therefore they're going to be where they are, and that's crap. I've seen that league a lot this year, and the league is highly competitive. You got to bring it every week. When I hear Kirby Smart in a post-game interview, I don't know, just tell all those people, come down here to the SEC, see how their record looks. I'm so sick and tired of hearing Kirby Smart tell me how everybody picks against him. Okay, you've won 2 national titles. You've already been anointed by the good old boys of the South as the next Nick Saban. And all you can do is shovel crap in the media's face because they don't pick you to win a certain game. Come on, get over it, Kirby. You're better than that.
Well, I tell you,
I mean, you're better than that. Enough. It's a tired, old, fatigued storyline that he keeps spewing out of his mouth.
Well, I tell you what's never mediocre, tired, old, or fatigued is your appearances on Crain and Company, my friend. And we always love having you. Tell everybody where you're going to be at. Y'all
Ann Arbor.
Friday. Y'all going to Michigan this
Ann
year.
Arbor. Yes.
Yeah. I think they got tired of Devin and I in the Big 12. They said, hey, why don't you guys go do a game that's just for bowl eligibility for Michigan? How about you just do that?
Yeah,
Okay?
maybe.
So
Bring some good vibes.
We're on FS1 at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern with Northwestern. And it is really, when you think about it, Ohio State is the next team. So if they don't get the 6th win here, it might be tough. Although, who knows?
Yeah.
What if Ohio State is licking their wounds? What if Ohio State is licking their wounds after an Indiana loss?
And losing their center against that Michigan D-line could make it a little bit more interesting, too. But
it could. You will see. Yeah. But the quarterback problem at Michigan has been, it's going to be a challenge for my partner because Devin, is a go blue guy. And, that the quarterback position has been a disaster for them.
You don't mean specifically from 2006 to 2010.
Yeah, no, that window.
Tim, I wouldn't even worry about it. They just offered Bryce Underwood half an Ann Arbor. So.
Yeah, it's actually offered him a harbor. Timmy B, you're the best.
My guess is Brian Kelly and the boys on the Bayou are going to, as they say, do whatever is necessary.
Yeah,
to hang on to Mr. Underwood.
Yeah, they need some good news down there. Timmy B, best in the business. Thank you, brother. Enjoy the chateau.
Thanks, fellas.
All right. Well, it's Wednesday, and there's been a lot of people being told to get out of the way.
You want this back-to-back with Timmy B?
But as he's walking up, let me tell you about something that doesn't need to get off our lawn, and that's Good Ranchers. They can stay all over our lawn. Absolutely fantastic company. Their name may be Good Ranchers, but it's a great product. And we know there's something profoundly meaningful about gathering around the Thanksgiving table with people that matter the most. And they've got a fantastic deal for you. If you subscribe to any one of their premium boxes, they'll add a free Thanksgiving ham to your first delivery. That's $110 value, absolutely free. This also comes from American farms and ranches. There's no antibiotics, hormones, or any of that other stuff. It is American made from American families like yours. So whether it's chicken, whether it's steak, right, whether it's beef or even seafood, all right, I'm not even talking about the free ham they're going to give you. Good Ranchers is the spot. Head to goodranchers.com. Use that code BOOSTER at checkout to claim your free Thanksgiving ham. Support American farmers. Skip the grocery store chaos. We know it's nuts. And make this holiday truly special with Good Ranchers. That's goodranchers.com. Use promo code BOOSTER and check out the butcher's box as well. Really? Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. All right, David, get him off your lawn, brother man.
SEC fragility needs to get off my lawn.
Fragile.
The first ever college football playoff involving 12 teams is right around the corner, and fans of the SEC are already arguing they should get all the spots. And it's not just the fans. Two-time national champion Kirby Smart complained that Georgia needs to be treated differently because of its tough schedule. And Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin says some coaches don't even want to play in the SEC championship because they'd risk losing a third game. Now, I understand that strategy. There's an old saying for it. It's called losing the battle, but winning the war. But by implementing that tactic, you are acknowledging that your conference is just another battle. It's not the war. What's amazing to me is that a conference which has so little respect for football played elsewhere around the country sets as the grand sum of its ambitions an opportunity to go play those other teams in a postseason invitational. See, I always heard the SEC champion was the national champion due to the league's dominance. So if that's no longer the case and the main objective now is to make the playoff when it's tripled in size, then why play in the SEC at all? Why shouldn't Texas and Oklahoma go back to the Big 12 where the path would be easier? Why shouldn't Georgia join the ACC? Unless, of course, the goal is really just to make sure the entire tournament is comprised of SEC schools, in which case, congratulations, you already have that. It's called your regular season, where only 2 teams make the championship game, because every level of football punishes losses. Now, I certainly am not defending all aspects of the college football playoff committee, but we begged them for some objective metrics for entry, and we got them. Win your conference, and you are in. Yet I'm hearing coaches complain who still have a chance to win their league with multiple games left in the regular season. Look, the Southeastern Conference can keep an 8-game schedule rather than 9. It can choose to play the lightest non-conference games possible, but don't do that and then tell me that the league is so superior that the worst teams in it would beat every team elsewhere. Not in a year when the league has sustained losses to Georgia State and Toledo and Oklahoma State. You're not the NFL. See, every NFL team would beat every college team. I don't care how bad the Cowboys are. The Panthers would enter the 12-team tournament and win it with ease. And maybe an SEC team will too. I predicted Georgia and Texas to rematch in the national championship. So I'd love to be right. But nevertheless, you're not the NFL, SEC. And I say this with love. What you are is a dominant conference in college football, the most dominant for much of my adult life, with many great traditions and a ton of pride. So be that and stop dishonoring yourself with pathetic politicking, because that needs to get off my lawn.
Hey.
You know, and I'm from SEC country, Dave, but I agree with a lot of what you just said there. I do agree. It is a contradiction a little bit, right? To complain that, or say the SEC championship game doesn't matter and we want to go play in the big tournament. Mm-hmm. But when you say that you are the big dogs in the SEC in the regular season, that is true. They're going to come for you just like they came for Blaine, but that is true.
Well, what about gutting the best teams from other conferences? I mean, if you take pride in your conference, which obviously the SEC does, and they've taken pride in adding programs like Texas and Oklahoma, why shouldn't they? College football blue bloods for longstanding. If you add the best programs from other conferences, then you can't get mad that your conference is now logjam with a bunch of talent.
Well, that's what's going to happen in the Super League if there's a breakaway anyway. It's going to be even worse.
And that, if for no other reason, leave the objective criteria for entry into the playoff, if for no other reason than to hasten that move, because I guess they'll get so frustrated they have to do something, right?
Yeah.
It's just, there's really good football being played outside the SEC. And I just don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, the SEC, I think, is the best conference, but there is still really good football getting played outside.
Two things.
See, I'm worried about you now, David. Hell, you got to go home to Darby Lou. I'm praying for you.
Well, look, and like I said yesterday, Alabama, the only player I saw was Tyler Booker, the captain at Alabama, stand up and say, some coaches don't want to play in the SEC championship game. Not only do we want that at Alabama, we want to go win it. And I think there's a reason why they have been the gold standard. Yeah. But yeah, look, guys, Thanksgiving next week is going to be a lot of fun with the in-laws after this past year's Rose Bowl. So don't get things twisted here.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. It's just funny. People are like, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, who lost to Georgia State. So you're like looking in this like real weird world of the transitive property. That's why it doesn't work. But all right, let's get to the phone lines here.
All right, let's see who's up on the line first. And it is Cameron in Florida. Cameron, what's going on?
Hey guys.
What's up, man?
What's up, Cam?
So I'm no Mormon and I'm no BYU fan, but I just don't feel like they should be ranked 14. At the very least, they should be ranked 12. And you can see that the committee disrespects them because they are ranked behind a 2-loss Alabama team, a 2-loss Tennessee team, 2-loss Ole Miss, and 2-loss Georgia.
Well, here's where I have a problem with it, Cameron, is that BYU and SMU both have one loss. I don't care when the loss happened. BYU beat SMU. And I think it may have even been on the road, if I'm remembering correctly, in that game. I may be wrong there. I may need to fact check me. So at least you would think BYU would be in front of SMU. And to me, when I look at SMU and BYU, since SMU's only loss is to BYU, how is SMU not ahead of Miami? And if SMU is going to be ahead of Miami and BYU beat them and all three teams only have one loss, how is not BYU right ahead of SMU and both of them are ahead of Miami? That's a problem I have with
BYU beat SMU in Dallas.
In Dallas.
Right.
In Dallas. So on the road. So to me, that's where the problem is. Do I think BYU is a top 4 team in the country? No. I think a lot of BYU fans would agree with me that they're not a top 4 team in the country. But I have a problem with, we can talk about BYU against Alabama and BYU against Georgia and Ole Miss. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about them next to SMU and then where Miami is. And I don't hate Miami. I picked Miami to play SMU in the championship game in the ACC and beat them. So I have Miami as a top 4 team in the playoff because they were going to win their conference. That's where I got a problem with it, bro. All right, Cameron, thank you.
Thanks, man. All right, let's go to Josh in Boise. Josh, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What's up, Josh?
Josh?
Hey, so, man, obviously, from my perspective, I'm thrilled about the playoff committee putting Boise State above BYU, right? Like, the fact that we maybe just get to drive down to Glendale and watch a second-round game sounds really appealing to me and everybody else in Boise. I was curious, though. I'm trying to put my objective lenses on, and I feel like the caller before me already kind of hit on it, but it feels absurd that BYU got pushed all the way down to 14 behind SMU, behind Miami, behind all of those. I do feel like the conspiracy theory part of me like sees a reason why the committee did it, though. And I'll explain it like for 2 seconds. I feel like they, on that committee, are Big Ten and SEC people. They want to see 4 of their teams from each conference be able to go to the playoff. They do not want to see 2 Big 12 teams in there. And so if they can start moving BYU back and some of these other Big 12 teams back, the wins, once they start just pulverizing each other in the next couple of weeks, will eventually only put 1 Big 12 team into the playoff.
Man, that's what we've been saying for 3 weeks. That's what we've been saying for 3 weeks now. Like that, if Notre Dame gets in, there's a very high likelihood, especially now that BYU lost, that the Big 12 and the ACC are only going to get 1 team in. But ask yourself this question. All right, what are the 2 biggest networks that cover college football? What would you say they would be?
The 2 biggest networks that cover college would be one,
and Fox, right? What two conferences are they tied into the most?
Right. Obviously,
so
the SEC.
What are the 2 biggest game day shows on a Saturday in college football?
Right, College Game Day and the Big Noon, right?
Crain and Company Preview.
Yeah, Crain and Company Preview. That was the right answer. But most of the time,
sorry, wrong answer.
Look, Fox is always going the Big Noon game in the Big Ten. The SEC pretty much goes back and forth between the SEC and the Big Ten. Hell, they'll even show up at the same place sometimes during the year. So, listen, we'd be naive to think that there's not something like that going on or that that's already baked in. I'm not saying it's right, but I can understand, at least in my opinion, Georgia being in front of BYU and SMU when their 2 losses are to Alabama and Texas. I can understand that. What I can't understand is what you just highlighted. Or you could even make a case for why is Ole Miss in front of them when you have the 1 big win over Georgia and 2 losses. I think you could make that case. No, I think Ole Miss is better. I think Ole Miss right now would probably drag BYU. But that doesn't mean that I can't sit here and look at it and say I can understand why somebody would think that, Josh. But great call,
man. Let's bring back to BCS. All right, great call.
Appreciate it, man. All right, let's go to Smoking Gator in Tampa. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? How's it
What's
going?
up, man?
What's up, dude?
Well, Blaine, I believe that I have a bet to honor. So, honor that bet, I shall.
Let's do it.
Here we go. Apologies to all the listeners. You've been warned.
Mm-hmm.
FSU, you're trash, and we're gonna beat that ass.
That doesn't count, dude. Come on, that doesn't count, David.
How are you gonna gas me up
now,
like that?
now you've got to record yourself singing the actual thing and put it on social media.
Hey, now, you never once said that I couldn't change the lyrics. Okay.
That's fine. Trust me.
It's a bylaw.
There's a guy who's about to knock on your door in 5 minutes. We'll get it.
Hey, Smoking Gator, give me a score for to Ole Miss.
Okay, so I don't think we're going to beat Ole Miss, but I do think Lagway is going to make it interesting. I'm going to say that Ole Miss wins 31-24, but just real quick, I just want to give some overall thoughts on where things stand right now. So, listen, as great as beating LSU was, I've just now been realizing the past couple of days just how absolutely massive that win was in terms of our season, potentially not being a total train wreck, but also the trajectory of our program, because you don't beat LSU, then you surely don't beat Ole Miss, and then you probably still beat FSU, but that still just leaves you at 5 wins, not good enough. But you did beat LSU. You probably still won't beat Ole Miss, but that's okay, because you're probably going to beat FSU. That puts you at 6 wins, and then maybe you get a bowl win. And I think for the first time in the Billy Napier era, we have an opportunity to do something that we never have before under him, and that's end the season on a high note, end the season with some positive momentum. Now, listen, if that does happen, I'm not going to be like, oh, Billy, I'm back on the Billy train, okay? Because I've been off the Billy train, and I am off the Billy train, okay? But for me, it'll be more like, all right, Billy, well, you didn't F things up in the end, and you have a golden opportunity. You got Lagway. You ended the season on a high note. If you want to earn back my trust, go ahead. But don't F things up, dude.
It's just, how far has
Here we go. Here we go.
You know what? Hey, guys, we're going to a bowl game.
Here we go.
We're going to be all right. We're going to win 7 games. We'll be fine. I remember when Florida used to kill people every Saturday. Every Saturday. Just remember, you fired Dan Mullen, who was 15 games above 500, but that wasn't good enough. But Billy Napier in year 4, who's going to be maybe 500 at the end of the year. Come on, Billy, don't worry. We got DJ Lagway. We had Graham Mertz and Anthony Richardson.
Blaine, I agree that it is unacceptable where we're at right now, okay? But that's just the reality of where we are at right now, and there's really nothing we can do about it now.
Yeah.
Hey, Smoking Gator, before you go, I posted this on social media. I said knocking LSU out of SEC championship contention, which is what Billy Napier did, that was his best win since he's been at Florida. Do you agree with that, or do you think when he beat Tennessee that was a bigger win?
No, I agree with you. I think LSU was a bigger win, primarily because of what I said earlier on my call, because that win allows momentum, you to, not only prevent your season from being a total train wreck, but it also potentially saves the future of your program. So that win over Tennessee was big, but I do think the LSU win so far has been the biggest win of his career.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
It.
Great call.
All right, let's go to George in North Carolina. What's up, George?
Hey, guys. How are you today?
Good,
George,
man.
what's up?
Good. First of all, Blaine, Jake, I owe you guys an apology.
Yeah, you do.
I was the one on Twitter earlier, and I used an attack that was inappropriate and not called for at all in the conversation about college football.
George, you ain't got. Listen, dude. Look, we appreciate that. Look, you are.
I don't forgive you.
Yeah,
George.
I
love.
I'm not asking for forgiveness.
Yeah,
George, I love standing in the kitchen taking the heat, brother.
Yeah,
that's what I'm big on confrontation.
Yeah, no,
one of my favorite things in life. So don't apologize.
No, we appreciate it. But I'll tell you what, man, that takes a lot of balls to call in and do that too. But no, look, it's all love, brother. It's I appreciate it. But again, I'm going to go home tonight and take out the trash just like I normally would. So I appreciate it. But keep going, man. What you got?
I know you guys are about the confrontation stuff, but I have kids, and I know one day they're going to be on social media, and it's kind of hard to raise kids and preach one thing about, treating others with respect. And then, again, like it's one thing to, like, make some comments towards you guys about, some pics or something you have, but what I said was a little over the line, so I did want to say I'm sorry for that. Again, I'm not expecting you to accept it, but I did want to.
We accept it, bro. You're good. Look, you're good in my book, bro. We'll have a beer.
Hey, George, what were you so hot about, man?
Well, I'll say I watched or I listened to the beginning of the show, and Jake changed my mind. So I was just really upset about I was one of those group of 5, protesters saying like, hey, we can't eliminate these guys and keep them out of college football and the playoffs and stuff, because at some point, I feel like it's just if we do that, what's the point of even having them at the FBS level? If we're going to do that, we're heading towards another major split where instead of 4 divisions of college football, we're going to have 5. But the way that, Jake talked about it with the automatic qualifier and the past couple of years, like excluding last year, there's been some really good group of 5 teams and a 12-team playoff. I think they absolutely deserve to be locked in. Now, last year's the outlier, like Liberty, SMU, they were decent teams, but I don't think they would have belonged in a 12-team playoff. I mean, we saw what happened with Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
And so it was that initial reaction of, like, man, we're attacking the group of 5 again. They didn't do anything. They don't deserve this.
Yeah. And see, but this is like George
Jake explained it.
Yeah. Well, like to me, that's again where you see people get furious in politics as well, right? When it's like this class warfare of the little guy doesn't get a fair shake, the big guy makes all the money, but the big guy thinks since he makes all the money that he should, or has all this pull, that they should get there. To me, I think whenever we end up, and there's some times where I think you need to be on the fringe of an idea. I've got no problem with that. But I do think there's sometimes where we got to be able to sit down and say, listen, if you're a group of 5 person that thinks a group of 5 team should always be in regardless, I think you're wrong. If you're a Power 4 person that thinks a group of 5 team should never get in, I think you're wrong as well. I think we get the numbers and let it play out, dude, on the field. That's why I don't have a problem with what Cone is saying about the automatic qualifiers from the conference championship. I think sometimes there is a middle ground. Not that you always retreat to the middle, but sometimes the middle is typically where the answer is.
Absolutely. And then my call-in, aside from the apology, was kind of twofold for you guys.
Go ahead.
So first, when you talked earlier about, hey, let's say Army runs the table, they beat a top 5 Notre Dame team, and that would also include most likely a ranked Tulane team as well in the American Championship game. But Boise State also runs the table from here on out, and their one loss is 3 points on the road against the number 1 team in the country. Is there room for both of them in the playoffs, or do we have to look at one of them getting out? Because you had also mentioned, hey, you don't see a Power 4 champion getting, kind of pushed aside.
Well, can I make a point here quickly? Because here's how I think this would happen. Yeah. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. If that came to fruition, that means Army would beat Notre Dame.
Yes.
So Notre Dame would be out of the playoff. All right, which that opens up a slot for an at-large. So the question now becomes, which one of Army and Boise would get the automatic bid? One of them will, so one of them will be in. But what happens if it's Boise that gets the automatic bid and Army is undefeated with a much stronger argument to get an at-large bid? I think that's the best case scenario for the group of 5 getting 2 teams in, as opposed to Army being the automatic qualifier, right, for going 13-0, and Boise being there at the edge compared to a 10-2 Tennessee or a 10-2, somebody like that, a 10-2 Texas. That's where I think you could have the most problems. So if you're a group of 5 fan that wants the most teams in, I think you're actually rooting for Boise to get the automatic bid and Army to go undefeated. I think that's the best chance. But again, since I don't have numbers to go off of, or there's nothing outside of the automatic qualifier as an objective metric, George, brother, I don't know.
I'll tell you what else could be interesting. What if Army loses to Notre Dame by 3 points, the same that Boise State lost to Oregon?
Yeah. I mean,
so they got one loss by 3 points to the best.
See, this is where, again,
but we'll find out more this weekend. George, call in after the Army Notre Dame game. All right,
you're good in my book, George.
All right, let's go to. All right,
I thought that was going to be.
Let's go 30 seconds each here. I want to get to as many callers as possible. Let's go to Andrew in Alabama. What's going on, buddy?
Yo, what's up, boys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Andrew, what's up?
I just wanted to say that I agree at the beginning of the show with Jake, and I know, Dave, you made this claim that every team should want to be in the conference championship, but I go to Alabama, and it's just hard. I want to do it, and I want to win, but I need the guarantee that they're not going to hold it against us, and I don't trust this committee any more than you guys do.
I think those are both two rational ways to look at it.
So you're saying that you'd rather make the college football playoff rather than make the SEC championship, which I just did a whole get off my lawn on what that means for the implications of the SEC from my standpoint. But yeah, I mean, and that's fine. It's a little bit different for you, I think, in a school that like wins the SEC every single season rather than say Ole Miss or Texas A&M or really even Tennessee. None of those schools have even won the SEC this century. wouldn't you want to get one of those? Like, as much as I loved watching Michigan win the national championship, never thought I'd see it. I'm still living on a high from that, Andrew. It would have been more hollow had they lost to the Buckeyes, not won the Big Ten, and then sort of fluked up, and then you get in the playoff and you win the rest of the games, right? Like, there would have been something missing about it to me.
Well, go ahead, Blake.
Well, I would just say, what do you think Nick Saban would say?
Well, like, here's the thing.
I think Nick,
go ahead.
I was. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think Nick Saban would want it, and I want it too. I'd rather win the SEC than go undefeated. If we're a 2-loss SEC champion and then we end up not winning the national championship, that's way better than making the playoffs and then not winning the national championship.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a good opportunity. But I also understand where people are coming from, where they don't want to have to go and play one of the best teams in the SEC, even though we did and we beat them, and you guys were there for that.
Yeah. and Andrew, I do want to say this before we let you go. Here's why, again, I think if we had these objective values put into a ranking system, and then you have asterisks or caveats that say, hey, here's how it's going to work. If you go to the conference championship game and you win it, it's a reward, you get the automatic bid. But if you lose it, we are not going to put those numbers in the computer. We are not going to treat you like a 10-3 team. We are going to enter in the numbers that you were when you were 10-2 before you played that game against Tennessee that's 10-2, against Texas that's 10-2, and against Texas A&M that's 10-2. At least we would know then that it wouldn't be a punishment, it would be a reward, and you don't lose anything by doing that. You don't take away from playing an extra game against a tough team, but that just is too easy, Andrew.
Well, another part of this that we don't talk about too often is that these schools and conferences get to set the schedules they want, all for the ultimate desire of going and playing on the national stage against all of the other conferences. Again, I hate to point to the NFL because they get a lot wrong, but they get a lot of things right too.
Agreed.
Imagine one of the divisions getting to all collude together so that they can send the most teams possible to the playoff. Like that's not what happens. And again, they have a weird situation of their own, which hasn't played out as far as I'm aware. But you have in the NFL, you could win no division games, win all the rest of your games, and still win your win your division.
Well, now,
right? Like how wild is that?
Well, now in Major League Baseball, you play 180 games and half the league gets in.
Yes.
Like insane.
I just don't know how I feel with a 3-loss team making the playoff.
Well, it just depends. If you win your conference championship, I can understand it, but then I think it devalues how good your conference was overall when it comes to the seeding of where you should be. But Andrew, great call.
Great call, man.
Next week.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Go ahead.
Hey, call in next week.
Oh, yeah, call in tomorrow.
Call in next week. All right, let's go to Tim in California. Tim, what's going on, man?
Hey, boys. I'll try to keep it quick. So one question I have is, do all the conference winners get the bye?
Yes. Well, the top four.
The top four that are ranked.
Yeah. So it's not power, but it's top four, but it's going to probably end up being the power four, 95.
That's why yesterday you saw Boise State, despite their ranking, climb into that fourth seeding.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also kind of crappy that a team like Ohio State, if they win out and being ranked 2, has to play right away.
Well,
even though there might be a 3-loss team or a 2-loss team from the SEC that gets the bye.
See, that's why when this came out and this started, I said that I have no problem with the conference champion from the top 4 conferences getting in. Where I do have a problem is, why couldn't we just seed it accordingly and whoever the top 4 teams are when it comes out get the bye, instead of saying these are the teams that have to get the bye? That was my only qualm with it. But at least there is an objective metric, like David said. That's one of the few we have.
Yeah, and I do like the Power 5 getting a team in, so that it's not just a money grab by the committee and saying, hey, we're going to throw, 5 SEC teams and 5 Big Ten teams in, and just because they'll get us the most money.
Tim,
similar to March Madness. March Madness, they throw, these small conference champions in. They get killed usually in the first round, but sometimes they go through.
But they earned it because they won. I
think Boise State has played well enough and against good opponents to where they won't need the automatic because they're a group of 5 school, that they will be a top 12 team in the country, and the committee will see that and put them in. I just don't think we need an automatic group of 5 bid, because we will run into a year where there's not a lot of good group of 5 teams, and we're going to walk in with a group of 5 team with a 2 or 3 loss, and they're going to get absolutely murdered.
Well, Tim, we got to run. I just wonder if there wasn't an automatic group of 5 team that got in, would they have Boise State ranked 12th or 13th? Because if you look where Army is ranked, I wonder, would the committee put them at 19th if they didn't have to automatically have one in?
Tim, we got to run, man. Thanks for calling in, though.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in. To his Buckeyes point really quick, think about what he just said, that Buckeyes could be ranked number 2, and it's really crappy that they couldn't get the first round bye. Who'd you lose to? You lost to Oregon. You played Oregon and you lost to them. And think about last year. The Buckeyes only lost on the road at Michigan. And what happened? You were kept out of the entire playoff. Yeah. Can we not at least agree that, like, oh, we lost a game, but this year we can still get in the playoff? Yeah. Like, let's at least acknowledge the reality of that situation.
I mean, if you think that sucks, imagine being
like, man, I don't want to have to play. Like they went from saying, man, we just want a shot. We could beat anyone if you just put us in the playoff. Now you're in. Well, we don't want to play in the first round.
Yeah, no, that is true. That's a good point. But imagine being Georgia. You didn't lose a game during the regular season. You lost the conference championship, and you didn't get in. So, I mean, damn. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's get to bets.
Hey, great calls today.
Yeah, great calls today. Let's get to bets quickly. Then I'm going to tell you about being a responsible man. Here's what we got first. I'm going to go Texas A&M, Texas A&M. Somebody's been eating candy back there. Minus 26.5. That's going off at minus 112. Then, guys, we got some hoops tonight. Bama, Illinois. Yeah. I'm going to take Bama minus 8. They're trying to come back from that loss against Purdue, who just got absolutely drowned in a small puddle of water by Marquette last night. That was a hell of a game to watch. But give me Bama bouncing back against Illinois, minus 8. That's going off at minus 110.
All right, boys, 2-0 yesterday. No one's talking about it, though. I'm going to stick with Maction. Let's go Toledo money line, minus 115. And then give me Eastern Michigan money line, and the odds on that are minus 112.
You're a sicko. I'm not, God, I hate betting that.
1-1 yesterday. Everybody's talking about it. I'm going to stick to football here. I'm just not ready for basketball yet. Give me the under in the Buffalo Eastern Michigan game. It's going off at 52.5 at minus 115. I'm going to flip it up a little over action. The Ohio-Toledo game, that's going off at minus 115 as well.
Want them Rockets to take off. What is Ace got? He's going to go Bama, Illinois over 167.5. That's at minus 112. And then Rockets, minus 19.5 on the hardwood tonight. That's going off at minus 110. But if you're going to bet, be responsible. If you're going to take care of your body, be responsible. Well, Jake, how can I be more responsible taking care of my body? Well, it's really simple. You need a great multivitamin. And this isn't your grandpa's Centrum we're talking about. This is a Daily Wire Ventures company. It's sourced right here in the United States, so you can trust it. It's Responsible Man. It's a multivitamin that's packed with 33 key ingredients that can help sharpen your immune system, keep you healthy, keep you strong. It's just good for you in general. Because we know diets nowadays, even when we try, there's so much processed food. If you're like me, you love fried food. It's hard to keep your body in the best shape as humanly possible. So you need that edge. You need that advantage. Think about nitrous in Fast and the Furious. The car may be going fast, but if it has to jump over that bridge that collapsed, you better hit that button and hold on, buddy. And right now, you can take advantage of Responsible Man's early access Black Friday sale. Get 60% off your order. Just head over to responsibleman.com. Use code BOOSTER at checkout, but hurry. This deal won't last long. Remember, gentlemen, America needs responsible men, and responsible men start Responsible Man. That's responsibleman.com. Use code BOOSTER for 60% off. Be the team your team needs you to be. Be the man your team needs you to be. God, I was on fire till the end there.
That's still a beautiful transition. Let's get these donations. If you donate today, thank you so much. We're going to do a $10 donation from RJM. What's up, dude? It says, Sir Blaine, the Don Crain, any advice for flying for the first time?
Oh, God.
Get as inebriated as possible. I'm deathly terrified of heights. So just drink a couple brewskis, man, and try to go to bed. And David and Jake, do you think Dan Mullen should take the Utah job or the Oklahoma State job next year, or take the Buckeye job?
I assume he means head coach? Or is he talking about OC?
Head coach.
He said Michigan or Oklahoma.
No, he said
Utah, Oklahoma State, or Ohio State.
To be the head coach.
Where you got Michigan and Oklahoma?
I was thinking about the OC thing. To be the head coach. Well, first off, I hope Kyle Whittingham doesn't retire. We'll see what happens there. But I would say Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State's sitting on a gold mine, dude. You got all the money you need. It's a big program. I mean, you got, people follow it. It's a very dedicated fan base. I think Oklahoma State, man, because I don't think Ohio State's going to be open.
$5 donation from the Green Man. Quack, 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 quack.
Appreciate the only non-controversial ranking right now.
$2 donation from Jim. Appreciate it, Jim. Does Vandy have a prayer of beating LSU this week?
Yes.
Yeah, have you watched them play?
Yeah.
Is Diego Pavia healthy?
Hey, man, get off your phone. We're trying to get locked in.
Well, I'm trying to. I got to do something here at the end that I promised I would do. But no, I mean, again, LSU isn't what we thought they were, and Vanderbilt sure as hell isn't what we thought they were. But if Pavia can't run around and create, it's going to take a lot of pressure off that LSU defense because that all goes into the pot, and Vandy needs every bit of it to be able to get out a good gumbo.
Let's go to $5 donation from the Dean. Reminder that I'm sending Cone Indiana gear for this weekend's game and donating to a charity of his choice. Where do I find the Crain & Co. shipping address?
Justine, can you help out with that?
Justine,
we need help. $10 donation from Matt. Appreciate it, Matt. BYU versus SMU and Miami. They have better strength of schedule, strength of record, and game control, plus a head-to-head win versus SMU. We should rank every team 1 to 134. 15 to 50 is basically the same, but 25 holds weight for whatever reason.
Don't hate it. And I agree with you 100% with the BYU thing.
$10 donation from Shane. Appreciate it, Shane. I'm with Cone about not liking weighing the games differently. That's why I couldn't stand the BCS. The timing of your loss mattered too much. It was always better to lose early, and that stunk.
Yeah, that's why. Hey, listen, if I was just throwing out the way the last 6 more than the first 6 as some sort of another metric to throw in the pot. I would just love to keep it as plain as possible. The game matters as much in November as it did in September. I'm totally for that.
I'm all for teams getting better throughout the year because that's what championship teams do. Who would you take right now if Nebraska and Colorado played a rematch game?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Colorado.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But you still have to look at the losses that happen, and you have to weigh those accordingly.
Well, and I think you can tell that from style points, margin of win, and schedule strength, right? Because if you're beating teams worse at the end of the year than you were at the beginning, that's going to show up. If you're beating better teams at the end of the year than you were at the beginning of the year, I think that's going to show up too.
$5 donation from Q-Smode. How likely do y'all think we end up witnessing a scenario where there is zero representation from the Big 12 and the ACC in the college football playoff this season?
Well, this season it can't happen.
Yeah, it can't happen. Yeah, can't.
$5 donation from SGR. Will the automatic bids help to create some parity across the conferences over time if they keep them in place for future years?
I mean, again, I've got no problem. That's what I was saying with David. I love the way college basketball does it. I love it. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I think the answer is yes, though, for a reason that you've always said, which is how many teams right now and their fan bases are able to argue these last few weeks that they deserve to be in, even if they don't. Even if you're at 14, 15, 16, something like that, and you're in the Big 12 or ACC, how many of those fans get to argue that they should be in because they're so close, and recruits get to hear that? Right? And I think that recruits get to hear how passionate these fan bases are.
$5 donation from Sawyer. He says, true or false, Clemson would be higher ranked than Georgia right now if they were to schedule an FCS opponent week 1 instead of scheduling Georgia.
False.
No, because the loss still...
I mean, y'all got beat so bad in that game. I don't think they would do it.
$5 donation. Last donation of the day from Serb. I'm finna be dead ass. I got no idea what we're talking about. Explain what a group of 5 team is to me like. I'm 5 years old and am a little bit high.
They're basically the Czech Cola versus Coca-Cola. Think about it that way. Quickly before we get out of here, I promised this dude I would do this. At the underscore other underscore take. You said that my brother knows nothing about football, yet you have a ranking in the top 10 that has Oregon 1, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, Boise 4, Indiana 5, Penn State 6, Notre Dame 7, SMU 8, Ole Miss 9, Alabama 10. Here's where you're wrong. There's so many contradictions in this. I could do it for an hour, but let me just give you a couple. How the hell is Texas in front of Ohio State when Ohio State's only loss is to Oregon? Texas's only losses to Georgia, who you have ranked 11. That makes absolutely no sense. Having Boise at 4 is absolutely asinine, including putting them in front of an undefeated Indiana team. A Penn State team that's only loss is to the third-ranked team that you have, so therefore, by your own metric, they should be ranked above. Having SMU at 8 and BYU at 14 makes you look dumber than putting a brain in somebody's dog and watching it watch backwards. BYU beat SMU on the road. They both only have 1 win. And having Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee 10, 11, and 12, when you sit there and have Penn State 6, Notre Dame 7, and Ole Miss 9 in front of Alabama, who also beat Georgia, makes absolutely no sense. None of this is good. If you're going to say that somebody doesn't know anything about football, don't come on here and get roasted like barbecue chicken when you have your list. You can't hide.
I love it. We had another donation run through. $10 donation from CLPN. How do you feel about conference championships getting first round bye, championship game loser host first round, then expand to maybe 16 teams?
I love it. That's what we just talked about for 90 minutes, right? I love it.
I mean, it's again, if we have something to
if for no other reason than to keep some conferences from rating all the other conferences to get the best team.
That's exactly.
All right, let's get to this poll, man. We do it every day. Should there be automatic bids in the playoff, fellas? Yes.
Yes.
Or no?
Oh, they said
100%. Yes. I don't know if they did.
You don't think so?
I'm going with yes.
Yes, what?
100%. You heard me.
David.
95.
Thank you.
I'm going to say yes, 71%.
No, 52%.
Wow.
Like
that's how tight it is.
Yes. They want 12 SEC teams.
That's how tight it is.
They want to repeat. They want to repeat the regular season again, all over again. They complain about it again.
All right.
No one can say this show's SEC bias after that. Get off my lawn, Dave.
No, I cannot wait to see the Twitter reaction on that. That and Tim Brando saying that the show's hyperbolic shit, which he's not wrong. Not this show, but the college football show on ESPN that breaks down the rankings. I kind of feel bad for those guys on the board, but then I realize they're super rich, and then I don't. We appreciate you guys hopping in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Got a great show for you tomorrow. Make sure you're locked in, and like the chances of the committee not playing favorites, we're going. Ooh, gone. Yeah, that was cold. If you're watching for the first time, that's how it always is. Yeah.